Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Faith Over Fear podcast. And for today's episode, it's going to be a good one. We're going to be focusing on tithing and offerings to God, both economically and also spiritually, as humans as we can give to God, right? Because I feel like whenever you hear the word offering, like you think of money.
Yeah.
And of course, that's, we don't blame you because, there is tithing, so for those who have gone to the church, you know what tithing is, but for those who haven't, so pretty much tithing is giving 10% of the income that you receive in your check.
I think it's funny that you're talking about it, like how usually when we say stuff like that, you're just kind of like, because I feel like when you introduced, I was just kind of like, when you're like, we're talking about tithing, I was like, it kind of made me think like, you know what I mean? No. Like, oh, and like, we're really excited for this episode, but you're like, oh, we're talking about tithing. And it just kind of felt like, like just hearing tithing, it just kind of seems like boring, Oh, okay. No, okay. Yeah, like that's what I was thinking, because you're like I feel like I'm really excited for this episode. Yeah. But when you introduced the title, it was just kind of like, oh, we're talking about tithing. It just kind of like, it's just like I would click off.
Okay, I get what you mean. Yeah, like, that's true. Like saying like we're gonna talk about numbers, we're gonna talk about history. Yeah, I get what you mean. Okay,
like that's what like I feel like I'm really excited, but then you're like, we're gonna talk about tithing, and I was like.
So don't click off, guys. So this is gonna be a fun one. Keep watching. I feel like God put it in our hearts for a reason, and so if you're here, God has something for you as well. So even though this is not the most like exciting topic, about like God's gonna prosper you, whatever, but I feel like it's needed. Yeah, it's very needed, and there's a reason why God told us like, hey, like. Talk about this, and so I also want to discover that as well, but I feel like I was the one that presented that topic to Crystal just because I'm reading the book of Matthew, and I was reading the chapters. I was reading chapter 2, and then the verses that I was reading was 9 through 12, which I'm going to read to you guys. So this is in NLT. Matthew chapter 2, verse 9 through 12. After this interview, the wise men went their way, and the star they had seen in the east guided them to Bethlehem. It went ahead of them and stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were filled with joy. They entered the house and saw the child with his mother, Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasure chest and gave him gifts of gold, frankincense,
right?
Yes, and myrrh. When it was time to leave, they returned to their own country by another route, for God had warned them in a dream not to return to Herod. So here in these like verses, I feel like it's not like verses where you would think about offering and like about tithing.
I'm a little confused on why you read that one.
So I feel like I'm going to explain to you, like I was reading those chapters, and since I would use them during word, it obviously goes kind of like by verse and like, each verse and whatever word is in that verse, So I was reading literally the ending of like the commentary is where God kind of like revealed tithing to me. So I'm going to read the notes that I had wrote down so I can kind of like make sense why these verses kind of like brought up, tithing and offering. So here we can see is that the first point, it says they were not satisfied with looking at the star and admiring it. They did something about the star and set out and followed it. So the star is the star that guided the three wise men, or three kings, wise men, right?
Wise men, yeah.
To obviously go to where Jesus was. So that's why here it's important for me to mention this, point, is because whenever we hear about the goodness of God, we admire it and just leave it at that. But they did something about the star and set out and followed it. Wow. So if you have felt something in your heart, follow it, go out into it, Yes. And then the second point is they persevered in their search and in following after the star. So, kind of goes back to the first, they went after the star. So they were not discouraged in the search by clergy and doubtful religious leaders. So I'm going to scratch that word and just put they were not discouraged in the search and doubtful religious leaders. So pretty much like obviously they knew that Herod was the one that also told them like, bring me what you know about Jesus. And what I like about is that the moment that they started following that star, they took that out of them. So they started seeing or putting their eyes on the star, which is, God guiding them and taking out all the other voices. And so that's something that can kind of like, going back to the tithing, if I can say this, there has been a lot of people that talk bad about it.
Yeah.
That has saying like, oh, that's not godly. How can you, the churches ask money for it. Like, the pastors, they probably keep it to themselves. So that's where it comes that whenever you say your eyes on Jesus, you take out all of those voices.
I like how it says that they weren't discouraged.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because we can get discouraged whenever we hear so much negativity in the church and out of the church. It can discourage us, And so then they rejoiced at the star. When they arrived at the destination, the star led them to, they entered in. When they entered in, they worshipped. They sensed an urgency to worship him now and not wait until later. When they worshipped, it was to give something, not empty-handed adoration. So it kind of
give something, not empty-handed adoration. Wow.
Yes. And then, okay, so here it says, we see a wonderful pattern. Those who look for Jesus will see him. Those who truly see him will worship him. Those who worship him will consecrate their substance to him. So here, it can kind of show you that, like, first we need to look at Jesus. You know what I mean? And then, you will start worshiping him, and then he is going to be the one after you look at Jesus and you worship him. That's whenever the desire comes. It's not about going and already needing to do all this. You know what I mean? And I feel like it's in every aspect, whenever you enter the church, sometimes it is a little, scary to go because you're like, you feel that there's this expectation of you. And the only expectation is to look at Jesus and worship him, and everything will follow.
I was talking to one of the people in my youth today, and he was saying how God took something away from him that he had been struggling with, that he tried to get rid of, but like he would keep going back to it. And I was like, oh, like I've been through something similar, And I was like, it's crazy because we try to get rid of things. And I was like we try to get rid of, we try to stop doing things, on our own understanding, I guess, But then the moment that you give it to God, like he takes it away for good, because like we try to do things on our own, but then we fail.
Yeah.
And I was kind of talking to him because he was talking about something that he was going through that was not honoring God, But for me, like it was in my modest journey, So I was kind of telling him about that. And then what you said, they were looking at Jesus. So that's the thing. When you turn to Jesus, like you're not focused on what you have to do or what's gonna, like, the things you have to get to, And I feel like a lot of the times we are so focused on like, oh, if I go to church, I need to stop doing all these things because I'm gonna go to church or I'm gonna try to get good with God, But I feel like you just have to look to God, not try to stop doing anything, you know.
I like that. That's very powerful. And that reminds me of my testimony. Whenever I went to the church, I was just looking at God. But since I was very young, I didn't understand the whole aspect of letting him change me. Like, I feel like I worshiped him, but I still kind of like did my own thing. And I feel like in a sense, it's a good thing because it didn't stop me from going, even though I wasn't doing right. Yeah. Like it kept me to still going, to still thinking that I belonged. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I feel like if I would have put that in my mindset of like, well, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that, so why should I go? But because I didn't think about that, all I thought about is like, I just want to go to his house. Like, I just want to go and see him and worship him and hear from him and learn more about him without thinking like, without realizing like, oh, I need to do some changes. Whenever I finally realized it was in a point where God told me like, you've been here, but now let's have a commitment. But it all started by just going.
Yeah, it starts by putting your eyes on him, exactly. You know, because it's so easy. I feel like that's like for me too. Like I came back, but I didn't come back. Like I've said it before, like I was like, I need help.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to try to better my life. Yeah. It was like, I need help. Yes. You know, so you place your eyes on Jesus. And I feel like almost everybody is just like, or not almost everybody, but people try to change on their own understanding. Like we do that all the time without even realizing it, you know?
Yeah.
But you just have to place your eyes on God.
Oh, I don't know why I'm tearing up, because I feel like those words that you just said, like, I need help. I feel like that is so powerful.
Girl, stop crying.
I'm sorry, guys. I don't know. It's just, wow. Like, I don't know. It's just very powerful. So you see, this is why, like, tithing is not just like, oh, like money or this. Like, it's like a whole experience. It's a whole, like, letting God take control of everything. You know what I mean? So this is amazing where, like, God is taking this video.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But then following kind of like what we're saying, so their worship is also manifested in obedience. They are obedient to the heavenly dream and leave without serving as Herod's informants. Yeah, hopefully that's how you say it correctly. So here, it kind of like what we were just talking about, where it's like whenever you go and you just focus on God, you worship him, and that's whenever God blesses you with obedience. You know, just like whenever God spoke to me, like, okay, like we've been doing this for a while, I want to take you to another level, but now it requires like obedience. So that's whenever God, you know, put that desire into my heart, like, do you want to stay or do you want to go? And I was like, I want to stay. You know, after him like giving me the privilege of feeling him physically, just like everything and just who he is, I was like, I want to stay. Even though I see no one staying, like, I want to stay and I want to know more of you, God. So I feel like that's whenever obedience came, you know, after everything that was mentioned in the previous, you know, points. And then
that's so good.
Right, so good. And then the next thing is, when Mary worshiped Jesus, she came with a gift, the most expensive. Oh, sorry, this is something different. Actually, okay, so this actually came as a thought. So what I'm about to read next, it was after, because whenever I was studying this, my mom came in and I was telling her about the revelation about, you know, like the king's men, whenever they went to Jesus, they didn't go empty-handed. You know, they went with gifts to him, because that's what it was custom back then. Whenever you're going to go to a king, you can't go there empty-handed, you know, and their way of doing that was with a heart full of love, but also something physically. You know what I mean? And that physical gift is what helped, you know, Joseph and the family be able to flee to Egypt. So God put that in them to give them a physical gift, because God already knew that they were going to need it to flee to Egypt. So it all kind of goes full circle as to, like, you know, money is used here, but God sees why. You know what I mean? God sees further ahead of us. So whenever you feel that, you know, tug, or you feel that moment of like, I want to give, you know, do it with the humble heart and surrender it. Once you give it, surrender it, and God is going to be the one in control of that situation. I understand that it can be kind of scary, because if you don't have like a closeness to like the leaders and the pastor, you don't know like what's it being used. I feel like, you know, luckily, like in my church, like we have that openness. This is what's being used, this is what's going on. But at the same time, even if you don't know, or maybe you can't know, once you give it to God, like, trust God. You know what I mean? Because if you're just focusing on who you're giving it to, then that's how you're going to let doubt creep in. You know? So with this one, it kind of shows here like another example of like not going empty-handed, because just like I was saying, like whenever I was talking to my mom, God gave me another example. So whenever Mary worshiped Jesus, she came with the gift, the most expensive, lavish gift, to the point where Judas and the religious leaders were mad at her for wasting it, which is the perfume.
The alabaster jar.
Yes, and you know how she used that to clean his feet, you know? So money, so for her wasting money and on it, just being poured onto Jesus' feet to worship and clean his feet. So that is another example of worshiping with a gift and not empty-handed, and how high it is to go with a gift. So it kind of shows you that, like, even though, yes, like God wants just a sincere heart, and that's already a gift to him, but this is how you know that we also have to put into perspective where it's like, you know, we're here on this earth, and at the same time, like, if you're able to, if God is blessing you with this, then like, why go empty handed to a king? And the reason why, like, I can say this is because, I've already talked about this, you know, in previous episodes, but I love giving to my church. Like, I love, like, if I'm able to buy something, if I'm able to put out of my own pocket, it's like a blessing to me. So, like, for example, like, and even to this day, like, just recently, like, I bought outdoor lights, like, and I'm buying, like, I'm gonna remodel the staircase, like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, but like, it's just like nobody's asking for it. Like, it's just a way that for me, it's like, this is where I go to worship. Like, I want to take care of the place that I go to worship. You know what I mean? And so that's the way that, like, I see it. So that's why whenever it was brought up to me about, like, you know, giving God the 10%, I was like, oh, you know, that makes sense. You know, just like the pastors always like to explain, like, it's like you give the 1%, and so you, like, everything else is for you. You know what I mean? But it's just kind of like a way for you to tell God, like, I trust you, bless my finances. So hopefully that made sense.
No, it does.
But I kind of want to, like, give you, like, the space to, like, tell us, like, your experience with
I feel like, well, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. Like, about a year ago, I think a year ago, like, around this time, that's kind of crazy. Why am I crying? About a year ago, I was working, and I don't want to cry. I want to say it good. I was working, and I remember that, like, the job that I had, God literally gave me this job. He, like, dropped it in my lap. And I remember that I started getting a feeling, like, to quit my job. And I ignored it. I did ignore it. I ignored it for a few weeks, maybe. I don't know if it was a month or not. Because I was like, I mean, maybe it's just me, you know, like, I want to quit. Like, don't we all want to quit our job sometimes? But I feel like it was, like deep in there, like, it's time to quit. And I was like, well, what am I going to do? Like, you know, why would I quit my job? And so I started praying about it. Like, if this is from you, like, let me know, you know? And I remember once I was here in church, and I was talking to a girl, and I was still kind of new. Like, I wasn't, not new, but I was like, I wasn't really involved much yet, or I was barely starting to get involved. And I don't remember why the conversation even came up or anything, but she said, and this was after I was already praying about, like, the feeling that I was getting. She said, sometimes you just have to quit your job to do what God is calling you to do. And when she said that, I was like, why did she say that? You know? Like, I was like, why did she say that? I mean, I didn't say anything. I was like, yeah, you know, yeah. And I kind of took that in, and I was like, whatever, you know, because I was still ignoring God. Well, not ignoring him, but I was like, well, that's not confirmation enough. Like, I kept praying about it, because I'm like, I don't just want to quit my job. Like, what am I going to do? You know? And then I went to a youth service in Grand Prairie, and I think their assessors were talking. They were talking in the mic, and he said, like, we had to leave, like, where we lived and our family. I think it was our family. And he's like, because God was leading us somewhere else. He's like, we had to quit our jobs. And he's like, sometimes you have to quit your job to do what God is calling you to do. He said something along those lines. And I was like, what the heck? You know, I was like, what? I was like, why would he say that?
Yeah.
But I was like, whatever, you know? And then the altar call comes around. Yeah. The altar call comes around. And this was already in my mind. And I feel like in this process, I feel like I was building my relationship with God. So I would question a lot because I wanted to be sure. I mean, I still do. Like when something is from God, I want to be 100% sure, you know? So I went to the altar and it was just heavy in my heart. And I was like, what do I do? Like, I was just like, what do I do? I was like, do I quit my job or not? You know? And I kind of asked it. And then I was just sitting there. And then I just repeated the question over and over. I was like, do I quit my job? Yes or no? And I kept, I asked him, like, it was just me asking the question over and over and over and over again, that altar call. And then the moment that I stopped asking the question, like the exact moment that I stopped talking, I was like, yes or no, for like the 50th time, they were singing a song and they literally said yes. They said yes, you know? And after all those 3 experiences and other things, you know, but I feel like those were the 3 experiences. I was like, okay, you know? And then I was like, well, how am I going to quit? Like, what am I going to tell him, you know? And what is my mom going to say? You know, what am I going to do? So I was just kind of like, I remember that because I worked at a paint shop. And I remember that I was like thinking like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be obedient, you know? And I was like thinking, I was trying to worry, but then I'm like, well, God's not asking me to do this for no reason, you know? So then I was like, well, I'm going to believe in him. So I put in my 2 weeks and I quit my job. And it's been really hard. Like, it's been a whole year. That's crazy, but it's been a whole year that I haven't had a job. But I feel like I literally, like, I wouldn't understand it at the beginning because I was like, well, what's going on? Like, why is this happening? Why did you say this? You know, people think I'm crazy. And it's kind of funny because at first, like, I was really excited to tell people because I'm like, God is going to use this. You know, he's going to do something out of this. And I would tell people, and then I realized that the longer the time got, I was just kind of like I don't want to tell anyone because I feel like people think I'm crazy. You know, the longer that time would happen. And I kind of stopped telling people. I mean, the people that know, and the people that don't, they don't know. But through this process, everything that I needed has been paid for. Like, he's provided in every way possible. And I'm not saying it's been easy because it hasn't been easy. It's been really, really hard, you know? But, like, he has blessed me so much. Like, I feel like I gave my life as an offering. Like, I literally feel like I offered him my life, you know? Not the sniffling into the mic. But, like, and it's kind of funny because I feel like when the time during service, when it's time to give offerings, you know, I feel bad because I'm like, I don't have anything. Like, how am I supposed to give if I don't have anything? And there's this song that says, like, all I have is the song to give, you know? And it's kind of funny because, like, I'm in the praise team. And he's given me a ministry, like, I don't know why I keep crying. He gave me, like, a ministry in music, so I feel like I literally just have a song to sing. Like, that's my offering, you know? But, like, he's, like, yes, I sacrificed my life, you know? But he's blessed me so much, like, I've grown so much, and it's been worth it, you know? And I don't know what's going to happen from here, but it's crazy because today when I was driving to church, I literally prayed to God, and I was like, I don't know if I'm supposed to share this testimony yet. I was like, I don't know if it, like, I was just kind of thinking. But it's crazy because before I prayed that prayer, I prayed to God, and I was like, I feel like it's time. But I didn't even know what I was talking about. I just said, I feel like it's time, you know? And then I went to pray the other prayer, because I was thinking, like, maybe it's time to share because I knew what we were going to film about.
Yeah.
And I was like, maybe it's time to share that testimony. But then I was like, should I or should I not? And then the prayer before came into my mind where I was like, I feel like it's time. And I was like, whoa. You know, I was like, is it time?
Yeah.
And then earlier today, I was telling you, I clicked on our last video. I clicked on it, and it started playing on a part where it was like sometimes we have faith, but then we question it. We're like, was that you or was that me? Because I was like, well, I mean, is it time to share the testimony or not? I was like, was that you or was that just my brain, you know? And then earlier this morning, I heard that clip because I clicked on it, and then I got off of it, and I was like, wow, like it's time. It's time to share, you know? And I feel like this process has been really hard, but he has grown, like built me in so many ways. And it's crazy because I feel like we just had our local camp, our youth local camp, and I feel like God showed up on Friday. Like, it was so amazing. And I was telling Valeria, I was like, I feel like God has been preparing us for this moment, you know? Because I feel like we were on the altar, and I feel like the feeling that we felt was just so amazing. Like I've never experienced that in my life, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like he literally like used me as a vessel to like minister. And it's just crazy. Like my offering was rewarded, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you know how it says, like, when we give, he gives?
Yeah.
Like, that's what that was.
Yes.
You know, like, I gave my whole life, and I gave my finances. Like, I literally quit my job, and all I do, I mean, is, like, read, and I, like, try to follow God the best I can, you know? And I just feel like the way that God showed up on Friday was just so strong. And I'm not saying it's because of me, you know, but I feel like he used me and he was preparing me, and I had no idea, you know, but the way that he just came through was just so amazing. And I feel like that was him, like, coming through, you know? Does that make sense?
No, that makes perfect sense, because I feel like, you know, your testimony is something that, like, God doesn't ask that from anyone. You know what I mean? Because it's scary. Like, you know, we still live in this world, and we still have, you know, whatever the situation is, like, you know, bills, car payments, you know, just even going out, you know, being able to help out in the church economically, you know, but at the same time, helping and offering what God really cares about is in the heart. Yeah. And that is all secondary. You know what I mean? So I feel like it makes perfect sense that your reward is that you gave to him, and then your reward is like he's giving himself to you. You know what I mean? So, but I feel like it just, you know, like, I praise God that this is just the beginning. This is just literally the beginning of, like, your blessings. This is just the beginning of your obedience. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, like, I just, it just gives me chills. It just warms my heart, like, seeing that, because a lot of people, we need to hear that. You know what I mean? Sometimes we're just so focused on, like, the money aspect, but at the same time, it's like we need to give ourselves first to God, and then everything will follow.
Yeah.
You know?
It's crazy how, and, like, that song, literally, like, it's, like, just a simple song to give, like, you know? And let me give my life as an offering, you know? And that's literally what I did. Yeah. Like, and I didn't realize that in the moment. I was just being obedient, you know? And I was like, now I think back and I'm like, imagine if I wouldn't have quit. Right. Like, imagine if I would have just ignored him. Right. He would have chose somebody else because I wouldn't have been obedient, you know? Yeah. And it's just awesome. It's so amazing how he's, like, taught me so much, and he's literally prepared me for a time like this, you know? Like, because, I mean, I'm not saying that, like, don't work, you know, but, like, having a job, like, you're, like, you're not fully locked in because you have so many other things to do, you know? Like, when I was working, I would read my Bible every day, but it wasn't, like, I didn't have all the time, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like he has given me so much time to really grow in him. You know, he has given me, and maybe it was also for this, like he was preparing me so I could speak, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
And it's like, and it's crazy because we literally have a whole podcast and I don't have a job, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because like God put it into your heart and God is like, I will provide. And he sure has, because like if we're being honest, like I'm also someone that's not like abundantly, but God provides. Like I'm super blessed what I've been able to input to this podcast, and I'm super blessed what Crystal has been able to input in this podcast. And so it's like truly an amazing thing where it's like God uses, like that's why I feel like we're two different people, two individual walks, but at the same time like going to the same purpose, going to the same God. So it feels really, it's a blessing. So that's why like we love that we get to talk to you guys from two different point of views of someone being able to give this and then someone being able to give it in a different way. So that was really beautiful. Very beautiful. And
I literally just cried my whole life away.
No, but yeah, it just comes to show that when you trust God, he provides. Like he really does.
And provide. I feel like I don't have, well, right now, like I don't have money to give, you know, but I gave what I had. And it reminds me, hold on. There's this because I was reading in Mark, and it's kind of funny because she sent me the 2 topics for this week. And I was like, yeah, like we can, I felt a little weird talking about like tithing because I'm like, I don't have a job, you know, but I was like, it's important, you know?
Yeah, it's important.
And that song came into my mind, like just a simple song to give, you know? And I was like, that's all I have to give. And that's all I've been giving, you know, like I gave myself because I don't have anything else to give. And so she sent me the topics. And so I kind of had that in my mind. And you know how you were reading in Matthew? Well, I was reading in Mark. And I was also an enduring word, which I kind of told you that I don't feel like I would use it, but I've been using enduring word. And it's helped a lot. Yeah. So y'all should use enduring word. But I read about the woman who gave, like everyone was giving, and she gave 2 mites. And it was like the rich people were giving, like they were giving a lot, you know, because they had to give. And it says Jesus noticed a long line of rich people who put in a lot of money, perhaps making some kind of display to call attention to their gifts. The one poor widow was different and offered 2 mites. And it says Mark tells us that 2 mites makes 1 quadrant. Matthew Pohl says that we can calculate the value of a mite based on the value of a denarius, which was the going rate of one's daily labor for a working man. According to people's calculations, a denarius equals 6 mias. 1 mia equals 2 pondians. 1 pondian equals 2 Isarians. 1 Isarian equals 8 mites. When you figure it all out, 2 mites are 1% of a denarius. A mite was pretty small, perhaps our equivalent of putting $1 in the collection plate. So she gave 2 mites. And it says Jesus noticed, wait, I already read that, hold on. It says Jesus looks at us when we give, and he notices how we give. As Jesus looks, he is more interested in how we give than in how much we give. In seeing how the people gave, Jesus wasn't studying technique. He looked more at motive and heart. So he saw the line of people, and he also says that she's the one that gave more. It says, assuredly, it's in Mark, I think 43 through 44. It says, assuredly, I say to you that this poor widow has put in more than all of those who have given to the treasury, for they all put in out of their abundance, but she out of her poverty put in all that she had, her whole livelihood. And then it says, this poor widow has put in more than all those who have given. And Jesus did not say that she put in more than any one of them. He said that she put in more than all of them put together. And then it says, they all put in out of their abundance, but she out of her poverty put in all that she had. This explains how Jesus, did I already read this? This explains how Jesus could say that the widow put in more than all. it was because the others gave out of their abundance, but she gave sacrificially.
Yeah.
You know, like she sacrificed. And I feel like that's what it's about. Like, what does it cost you?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, like it's not supposed to be from like what's left over. It's supposed to be kind of like what kind of causes you like a sacrifice to give, you know?
Yeah, and I feel like all these people were probably like, oh, like I gave this much, you know? Well, not even like that. They just gave what they had to give, you know, or maybe a little bit more. But he noticed the one that gave all that she had, you know? And I feel like, I don't know, like that says a whole statement in itself, you know, like, hold on, let me keep reading. It says, Jesus' principle here shows that before God, the spirit of giving determines the value of the gift more than the amount. God doesn't want grudgingly given money or guilt money. God loves the cheerful giver. The widow's gift and Jesus' comment on it also shows us that the value of a gift is determined by what it costs the giver. This is what made the widow's gift so valuable. David refused to give God which cost me nothing. That which cost me nothing. Jesus' principle here shows us that God does not need our money. If God needed our money, then how much we give would be more important than our heart in giving. Instead, it's our privilege to give to him. We need to give because it is good for us, not because it is good for God.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know. Like, it's kind of crazy, you know, like we can see it in this whole perspective that the people say like, oh, like you give, you know, but it's literally a privilege to give. It's for our own good, you know, like he doesn't need our money.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like whenever they, you know, kind of like what it states there, that we kind of have to first give our worship. So that kind of tells you that it's like, he's not asking you to give money. He's asking you to trust him. Yeah. Whenever you give. So whenever you give, you have to have that trust that he's going to bless you. So that's why like whenever he asks for the tithing, it's kind of like the only thing that God is asking, like, oh, you know, kind of like test me. And you will see, like, you know, that's the only way that God asks of us in that aspect. And so whenever you do it with a believing heart and a humble heart, he will bless your finances. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so sometimes like many people, they're like, no, like I don't want to give 10% because I have this payment, I have that payment. But that's whenever God comes in, he's like, test me. You don't trust that I can bless you. You don't trust that I can provide, because he is the provider. He is literally the owner of it all. And it's only 10% of the check. Everything else you get to keep. And you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I feel like if you look at it in my testimony, like, I gave my life, you know, and I feel like he like, you just had to be there. The way that he showed up, like, it was just so amazing, you know, like he rewarded my obedience, you know. I don't know why I feel like it's just insane, you know. And it's like a perfect example, like when you give, like he's gonna reward. And in my case, it was spiritually, because I gave my life, you know.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And there is benefits to it. So kind of like, I don't think I spoke about this, but there was a time where I also quit my job because I wanted to go live with my dad and go back to school, because I wasn't seeing him so often. So, and I wasn't seeing my little brother so often. So I was like, hey, you know, like my dad was able to take care of me, you know, financially. And, you know, I was able to go back to school. But I feel like it wasn't God's will, though. Like I wasn't doing this because God told me to do that. I did it because of some circumstances, and I thought it was the best thing for me to do for my family. But I didn't, you know, give it to God. So I feel like, but the beauty of it, and the reason why I still want to talk about this, is because whenever there is a moment that you do something and God isn't part of it, he's like, okay, this isn't me, but I'm still going to turn it around and do something good with it. And so kind of like how you said that, you know, whenever you quit your job and whenever you are working, like it consumes a huge chunk of your day. Like for me, I'm someone that has a 9-to-5 job and Monday through Friday. And then like, it's a little consuming because like right after work, I have to go right after, you know, to church, you know what I mean? And then I'm someone that everybody knows who knows me. I love to sleep super early because I have to wake up super early. Like 9, I'm already in bed, you know? And so I feel like because of that, there has been moments that causes me to be like, I will read the Bible tomorrow. I'm being honest. I will read the Bible tomorrow because I need to go to sleep. Or I will pray like less. I won't do my 30 minutes and I will just do 20-10 because I need to go to sleep. Why? Because like a job literally consumes you. And but going back to me not working, that was the opposite. Like now I had all the time of the world, and that is what actually I guess you can say elevated my ministry. You know, I was able to finally get closer to my pastors, to the leaders, and I was able to form a relationship with them now. Yeah. And that caused me to be able to help out on Tuesdays, on Thursdays, on Wednesdays. I was able to be there an hour earlier on Sundays, an hour earlier for Wednesdays. I was able to do so much things. So that's what I love, that even though it wasn't God's will for me to do that, he turned it around and made it for good. That's what helped me and elevated to where I am now. Yeah. Because imagine if I worked, I would have not had formed a relationship with my pastors or with the leaders. I wouldn't had been, probably that prophecy wouldn't even been told to me, because if I didn't went to that Bible study, then I would have never heard that prophecy over my life. You know what I mean? So it kind of like, it's like a full circle. So just like, me and Crystal, we're not saying like, quit your job. No. Do it. Do what God asks you to do. Yeah. That's what we're saying.
Be obedient.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's so easy for me to say, read your Bible every day, because I have so much time, But like when you were talking, like sometimes it gets hard, but like I've done it. Like I've done the reading the Bible and being on top of it, being determined, and it works, Yeah. Yeah. Like that's why I say it, like, and I know it can get hard, but it just takes determining yourself, like locking in with God and being like I'm gonna make the sacrifice to seek you today. I'm gonna make the sacrifice to read my word, even though I've been busy, like, it's easy for me to say, because I have so much time, but like it really does make a difference,
it does make a difference. So whenever I push aside everything else and like just focus on God, it's a true blessing. Like, do I get tired? Yes, because, I'm still human. Like, just like I said, right after work, I have to go to church. And then, if I sleep late, then I feel tired. Yeah, whenever I make that sacrifice, like the reward is just abundantly, because now it's sacrificial. Like now I don't have the time of the world. So God sees that and he blesses me. And that's what I love, that I always put a God first and then my job, and so my finances go to God, and so that's why, like, for me, like, it's a blessing. Just like I said, like, I don't have the most high paying job, but being able to put that seed, financially to the podcast, to my church, is like truly just a blessing, and I still ask God to help me to still be able to administrate it even better, to to be able to, if I grow, is because I want to be a blessing for others, but obviously, like, if that's God's will. But I always like to have big dreams. I always like to have big goals, because my aspect is being able to be a blessing to my family and to my church. Like, I always have that aspect, for my church, for my pastors, because if I'm good, I want to see them good. And of course, God wants us to enjoy a holistic, salvation. We're still in this world, and he still wants us to prosper. He still wants us to be able to be good, economically, because we are still in this world, but he's also mainly asking you to trust him, just trust him. And obviously, like, read your Bible about tithing, ask God to reveal something to you about tithing, because I feel like everything is very individual. I feel like we can all help each other, but just like God asked something from Crystal, he didn't ask it from me. And just like God has been asking something from me, he hasn't been asking it to Crystal. So that's what we ask, and encourage you, like, ask God, what are you asking from me in this aspect, when it comes to tithing and offering and all that, and God will reveal it to you. God will answer those questions, because there is an importance to that, because it's a way of worshiping him. It's a way of honoring who he is, and just giving that surrender and giving that trust to him. And then also, like, don't focus so much on who you're giving it to, like, obviously, yes, you see the organization you're giving it to, like the church and the pastor and all that, but whenever the wise men gave the gift, they gave it to Jesus, but the person that had to receive it was Mary, because Jesus was a baby. So they had to hope. So they gave it to Jesus and they left it at that. They didn't go leaving saying, like, Mary better use it correctly. Mary better use it for Jesus. They didn't go. They just gave it. Yeah. And that's it. They were obedient to what God wanted, just to give it give it to them and not worrying what that money's going to do. You know what I mean? And so that should be the same way with us. Like whenever you give, don't be like, oh, they better not use it for themselves. Like, no, like you're giving it to Jesus, but because he can't physically receive it, we're giving it to the person that, you know, God is using in that aspect, and which is the church and which is the pastor. So technically you're tithing to God, and the person that needs to receive it is the pastor, the church, right? And so, you know, in kind of like the same way, whenever Jesus, he couldn't receive it as a baby, and right now he can't receive it as a spirit. So he uses people, he used Mary, and right now he's using the pastor to be able to receive that and use. And we just have to, you know, hope for the best, because obviously I'm not going to say every organization is perfect. But once you just give it, let it go. That's for God.
And I like how you keep saying trust God, you know, because back to my, like, I feel like I had to trust God, you know, like, and it's important, like, trust God, you know. And you also said that giving, like, offering and tithing is a form of worship. It is, you know, like, it says God loves a cheerful giver, you know, like it is worship. It's part of worship, you know.
Worship. Never go empty handed to the presence of a king. You know, so whether it is a heart full of love or an offering, a physical offering, and God sees that and God blesses that. And so that's what we encourage you, you know, like if you have any questions, we're here to help you out. We're here to, you know, go deeper. If you would like to ask any questions or leave any comments down below, because it is something that I really want to focus on, because the way that God revealed it to me, I was like, wow, like it's so true. Like, you know, it's not, sometimes even though you're in the church, you know, it's always good to like asking God, like yourself personally. They're just there to kind of like help you and equip you, but then it's up to us to like truly know what it means by communication with God, reading our Bible and fasting,
having that relationship, you know,
and
I feel like trusting God can be hard. Especially like in tithing, you know, or like
because you don't physically see yourself giving it to Jesus. You see giving it to the church or to the pastor or whatever, you know, but just see it as in like whenever the wise men gave it to Jesus, Mary was the one who had to receive it, and they just had to hope that they used it, that Mary and Joseph used it for the ministry to, you know, for Jesus, you know. And so the same way here, you know, like Jesus, God can't physically receive your money, so he uses people to receive it for him. And then we just have to hope that it is used for good.
And I feel like también, like me, like I had to trust God on his, like what he said, you know, like I had no idea how I was gonna do it. And I feel like at times I'm still like, and I had no idea what he was gonna do. You know, like I didn't know what the purpose was. I was like, what's the reason? You know, I didn't know that he was gonna open my eyes in the way that he has, like the stuff he's revealed to me, the stuff that, like the wisdom he's given me, you know, like, and it's all for his kingdom. It's all for his glory, you know, like he's molded me, he's transformed me, he's gave me this time, but I had no idea when I was quitting my job. Like I didn't know what was coming. I didn't know the purpose, and I didn't know how I was going to pay my bills. I didn't know how I was going to, well, not eat, you know what I mean? But like how I was going to eat, you know, I didn't know how anything was going to work out. But I'm like, if this is what God is saying, like, you know, like the level of faith, you know, like I don't even know how I did it.
And this is another example of faith over fear.
Literally faith over fear, because that's scary, you know, like I feel like I'm still scared, like, you know, but I feel like the way that he has shown up financially for me, like there was a time where literally Valeria got a check in the mail for $7,000. Like what? $7,000 like at a random time. She just,
praise God.
Right?
Yeah, that's awesome. And you see, like, God literally comes through.
And it was like stuff like that. Like, he's literally just, like, he asked me for a reason. And I feel like, trust God. Like, it's hard, but he's God. He's literally, and he's not crazy. Like, he's not going to tell, like, I may look a little crazy because I quit my job because God told me to, you know. When I told my mom, I feel like she understands, but then when things get hard and she needs a little bit of help, she's like, when are you going to get a job, you know? And I'm like, soon, you know, because I'm like, you know, but I feel like I do sound a little crazy, like, if you think about it. And I feel like if I mean, I only know because I know what I'm living, you know, but I feel like if I were y'all, I would be like, she's a little crazy. Like, who quits their job, you know, because God told them to. Like, that sounds kind of crazy, you know, but that's faith.
Yes.
The episode before.
I know, right?
That's faith, you know, like he's God. Like, he didn't tell me for no reason, you know? And I feel like I see it now. Like, I'm able to help people, and it's a blessing, you know? And it's just amazing. Like, praise God.
Yes, praise God, literally. No, yeah. So I don't know if you have anything else to add to that, but I think today, like, this was just kind of like proof of why we needed to talk about it. I think it's such an awesome. So now you see,
it's also crazy. Sorry, it's also crazy how, like, in the morning I was like, it's time.
Yeah.
You know, like, time for what? I just said it. I was praying and I was like, I feel like it's time, but I didn't know what I was talking about.
Yeah. And now you know. Now you know. But just like I mentioned, if you have any further questions, you can always contact us directly. We do have Instagram. We do have TikTok. And for audio only listeners, we do have Spotify and Apple Podcast. Also, you know, subscribe to this channel, leave any comments down below, like this video, share this video. Thank you so much for the support that you guys have given us. And we are here, you know, to pray for you. So if you have any prayer requests, just like I mentioned, you can always contact us in any of the forms that I have mentioned previously. But I think this is it. So thank you so much for watching, and until next episode. Bye guys.